Welcome to the Business Infrastructure Podcast AI Conference.
Over the next 12 episodes, you'll hear a combination of fireside chats, keynote speeches, and product demonstrations, all centered around AI. Hi there, I'm Alicia Butler-Pierre, host of the Business Infrastructure Podcast, the show where we share operational tips, strategies, and tactics to help improve the way your company operates. We have another great episode lined up for you featuring our AI Tech Conference. This particular episode is bound to be packed with some really useful information that you can use to dramatically improve or transform the way you might be doing something in your back office operations. Before we get started, do me a really quick favor, please. Press pause, subscribe to this channel, hit the notification bell so that you'll know when other episodes come, and then press play and we'll get right into it. I hope you enjoy this episode. Joining me today in Lyon, France, is Aurélien Coq.
Yes.
Did I pronounce your last name correctly? I forgot to
Yeah,
ask.
that's correct.
Coq?
That's
Okay.
correct.
And he is a product manager at a technology company known as Esker. He's specifically going to talk to us about the order to cash process. We're going to define what that actually means in case you don't necessarily refer to it as that. I promise if you are in business, you definitely have an order to cash process. You just may not call it that, but trust me, you have one. So let's get right into it. I noticed that your career started off as a software engineer. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I mean, well, not fully correct. I have an engineering background, but I didn't really start. I was more doing tech support, actually, so not really software development, even though I studied software development and telecommunications here in Lyon and actually also in the US. I was an exchange student at the University of Iowa back in the days.
Yeah, I noticed that because I remember thinking when I looked at your LinkedIn profile, Aurélien, I was thinking, how on earth did he go from Lyon, France to Iowa?
So
That
that's
must
a
have
long
been a
story.
serious culture shock.
Yeah, that's a long story, but to make it short, I was swimming, and the Iowa team had a swimming team. So I was part of the team for 1 year. I was a Hawkeye, and yeah, that's how I got to visit Iowa, I guess.
And did you just stay for a year or?
Yeah, I just stayed for 1
Okay,
year.
okay. Well, now I also noticed that you have another degree in computer science, and that's what you pursued in Iowa,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Was it at that point that you would say your interest in AI began? Because as one of the things we've learned so far, just from interviewing other people for this particular season of the show, is that AI has been around for a long time. It's not
Yes.
something that's new, even though it seems to be on the hearts and minds of so many people right now. It's actually a technology that's been around for a while. So at what point would you say that your interest in AI began?
So at the time, we were not talking about AI, to be honest, and my interest was more around computer science, doing something with computers, and helping people in the end. That was, but I didn't realize there was AI behind, whether you called it AI at the time or not. To me, the interest really. So yeah, to go back to my what I did. So then I started working at Esker as a tech support engineer. I actually moved to the US at some point. I also went back to the Midwest in Madison, Wisconsin, came back to France, and that was around 2010, where really Esker was doing AI, even though we were not advertising it, because it wasn't like really cool or valuable from a marketing perspective. But we actually were doing some machine learning, so algorithms to improve recognition of orders, and we're gonna get into that later, I guess. And yeah, this is where I saw, and also that's when I moved from technical support to really being a product manager, because I wanted, when you're in tech support, well, you help people, but you feel like sometimes you're a bit limited. And, if a product was a bit better, then you wouldn't have so many technical support issues. So that was kind of my idea to, you know, get my knowledge and bring that to product management and make sure that we make better products for our customers. Yeah.
Well, that's great. And what led you to working at Esker? Because and tell us, for those of us that aren't familiar with the company, what exactly does Esker
Yeah.
do?
So Esker, this is a French company, but international. So we do have offices in the US, in Madison, also in Denver. And globally speaking, we automate the back office processes. So our goal is really to facilitate the life of customer service people or accounting people in finance, and make it easier for them to work with their customers, suppliers, and really to empower the employees with AI-driven technology.
And so you've been there, I think you mentioned, since 2010, was it? Or
2010 is when I moved to product
to product
management.
management. Okay.
So I started in 2004, actually.
Okay.
That's close
And
to 20 years.
I think it was a very interesting point that you made about on the tech support side, where you said, well, if we had a better product, there might not be as much of a need for the tech support. So that's a really
Yes.
that's a very astute observation. Can you tell us a little bit more about this amazing AI technology that you all have to automate these back office processes that you just described?
Yes. So we call that, we gave it a name. It's called Esker Synergy.
Okay.
And so this is, let's say, our engine, and it uses different technologies. So AI, I think, yeah, it's been there for a long time, since the 50s, the beginning of the computers. And the goal is to simulate the human intelligence. And so we have, so Esker Synergy has different, let's say, well, yeah, technologies embedded within. So we have some machine learning, we have some deep learning that are also referred to as neural network. And we also recently, we leveraged ChatGPT, using the product from Microsoft Azure. So we use a combination of all of that. It's sometimes our own technology, sometimes we use some external technology. And once again, we want to empower the users. So in terms of real applications, what it can do, well, it can capture data and verify data. So the most maybe a basic or simple example, maybe not basic, because nothing is basic, but it's possible to capture data from an order. So you receive an order in an email or as a PDF attachment. And as a customer service rep, most of the time, you need to retype all of that in your ERP system. So with AI, you can capture what is the customer, the shipping address, the PO number, the materials ordered, the quantities, and create that automatically with verifications. Put some alerts if the quantity doesn't look usual, for instance. So that's one example. And then we apply that to really capturing data and validating data, but also proposing things to users. So we use that, that's called more prospective or predictive analytics. So for instance, you can, more in finance, another example. So most of the companies do some credit management. So they manage credit for their customers, and at some point, if the customers order too much and haven't paid enough of their invoices, they might block the orders. So we are able to, based on the history of orders and payments, to say this is the credit limit that you should use to make sure that your business runs, but without putting too much risk. Or down the order to cash cycle, we also have analytics to say this is the most likely pay date for this invoice. This customer is a bit late, but most likely they're going to pay within 3 days, so you don't have to call them actually. But this one, they're very late, and most likely they're not going to pay unless you call them. So you should put your efforts into that. So that's really an assistant. That's the way we put it sometimes. It's really there to assist the users in that job.
So I'm envisioning what I think it is and how I think it works. And I do want to get very specific about that. But before I do, would you mind explaining what does order to cash mean? Because there might be some
Yes.
people who are watching
Okay.
us right now and listening, and they may be wondering, what on earth does that mean? Even though we
Yeah.
both know that they actually do have that. If you're in business,
Yeah.
you have
Necessarily,
that process.
you have that process somewhere. So order to cash, it's the process of working with your customer, with your customers, because usually you have multiple customers, uh, and so they're gonna ask you questions. Maybe what is the description for this product? Do you have availability? What is the price? Then they're gonna place an order. So that's the beginning of usually the beginning of a cycle, and then all the way to the cash. So you're going to deliver the product or services, deliver an invoice, and in the end, get your invoice paid. So that's the cash of order to cash, and with all of the hiccups that can happen along the way. So that can be plenty. Your customer is asking for something that you don't do. There's a mistake in the order. He asked for, I don't know, 10 boxes, but you deliver 10 pallets. And he's not willing to pay because of a disagreement on the price, because he doesn't have any money. I mean, there could be plenty of reasons. So all of that, this is the order to cash cycle.
And
And just to finish, at Esker, we actually manage both the order to cash cycle with customers and the source to pay cycle, which is the other side when you work with your suppliers.
And that's what actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's what I was going to ask you
Oh.
next, is if you would not mind describing what the source to pay is. But first, so order to cash touches several different groups. I heard you
Yes.
mention there's the finance and or accounting teams that might be involved. There's the actual salespeople, because they're the ones
Yes.
who are selling oftentimes. And then that customer support piece, possibly even some bookkeeping that might get involved, just to make sure that everyone is in alignment and making sure that, what is the fastest way that we can get our revenue. Now,
Yes.
one of the other process that I think you were just about to start explaining or describing was the other one that I noticed, which is very prominent on Esker's website. So there's order to cash and source to pay. What is source to
Correct.
pay?
So source to pay is just, let's say, the opposite. So you're a company and you're working with your suppliers. So it could be any supplier. It could be the electricity bill, but also suppliers that help you build your product or services. And you're going to source your expenses, your purchases, and then you're going to place an order, and then you're going to receive an invoice, probably approve the invoice, make sure that it matches with what was ordered and delivered, and in the end pay. So once again, it's the same process, just if you see it from the customer's point of view or from the supplier's point of view.
Okay. Now, for my very specific question that I have for you, Aurélien, so I'm imagining a typical small business, and it could be one that sells products or goods and or services, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oftentimes we use something like QuickBooks for our
Yep.
accounting, and we may have a CRM like maybe HubSpot or Salesforce, Monday.com, something like that, where we house customer data.
Mm-hmm.
Does Esker Synergy bring all of these different tools that you might be using in your small business together? Or how exactly does it work? Does it sit on top of all of those tools that you already have, or is it replacing those tools?
So it doesn't replace those tools.
Okay.
And to put it nicely, we try to play nice. I mean, we play nice with everybody.
Okay.
Our targets are usually not really, really small businesses, but at least a bit larger than that. And usually they also have an ERP such as SAP or Oracle, and we integrate with all of those. But we're not replacing them. yeah, sometimes I remember that's not a nice way to put it, but we're kind of the glue that holds everything together and that makes sure that you have a smooth exchange, from the document that you receive from your customer and your internal systems, because there's always gaps,
Yes.
integration gaps with the systems. And this is where we have a lot of manual tasks, such as retyping data, which is not valuable for anybody, and error prone. And so we're trying to really remove that. But we do integrate with the CRM, with the ERP,
Okay.
and and every customer environment is different. So we have to be very flexible. Some companies, then there are some mergers and acquisitions, and they end up having two different systems, but you have to play with both until there's a migration, which could take years to
Yes.
actually take place. So yeah, we have to cope with the IT diversity.
I'm going to read a quote that I noticed when I looked at Esker's website, because I think it's worth us having a conversation about it. This quote says, "It's worth noting that AI and RPA, which is robotic process automation, are not designed to replace workers, but instead enhances how your team performs their daily tasks. Think of it as a digital team member that works 24/7 on its assigned tasks and never takes a day off." So if we think of it as this digital assistant, is it that Esker Synergy might say, okay, I noticed that you have an invoice that is maybe 5 days overdue. Is it just, is there some type of a chat feature, or is it sending alerts? How is it actually acting as a digital assistant?
Okay. So this is where, you need to understand really how it works. This is maybe where I can show you the demo.
Okay, that
Uh,
would be fantastic if you
this is
can.
an example.
Yeah, please.
So I've got an example. So this one is, you place yourself in the shoe of a customer service rep, and you're getting a question from a customer about, where is my order? The customer ordered, and they want to know, where is the order? So I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
So yeah, we've got the customer's email right there on the right. First of all, we've been to analyze it and say, oh, there's a negative sentiment, so be careful. It's been automatically classified. It's an order question. We were able to integrate with the systems, that's what I was mentioning, and retrieve the shipping information. And from there, the assistant proposes a template-based answer, and we can even go further and generate it with ChatGPT. For instance, in this case, it would be probably a bit better because the customer sentiment was negative. So with ChatGPT, you can take that into account. While if you just use a template, it's just going to be template-based and maybe not fully appropriate to this particular example. So that was one. So that's really the assistant proposing an answer to the customer service rep.
Oh, okay. And so ChatGPT is literally, if I understand how it's working, it's not just searching the entire internet, but it's actually
No,
searching within that particular customer's database,
yes, correct.
databases. Okay, so
Yeah. So
whatever information is already in the ERP, as well
yes,
as,
or
okay,
somewhere.
okay,
So in this case, we got an order status request. We identified the PO number, and then we were able to query the systems and to say, do we have a shipment information for this one? And we did. And let's say the shipment got delayed. It was planned for, I don't know, October 1st, but only shipped on October 10th. And from there, so we provide all of this data to ChatGPT to generate just a nice answer. But ChatGPT doesn't invent anything. We just make sure that we provide the data, and it's just going to be able to put it in a nicer way than a template based, which necessarily doesn't fully take into account the actual customer's email or tone or whatever.
Can you speak a little bit more, Aurélien, about that whole piece about it truly being an assistant, and it's not designed to actually replace people, but rather to enhance and help them work more efficiently and more productively?
Yes, and that's really important. I think it's really our philosophy to say, the AI or the robot, if we're talking about RPA, they're not here to replace people. They're really here to change the way they work, but to simplify their life, to make it easier for them, to remove all of the tasks that are just tedious, such as answering an email, gathering the data, connecting to a system, retrieving this information, writing the email. So really, our goal is to empower the users, the employees, and we think by empowering the employees, then they're going to be more happy at work. They're going to stay. It's going to be easier to recruit people. I mean, there's a lot of benefits, and in the end, eventually, they will serve customers or suppliers better. Because if all they do is type data in an ERP system or an accounting system, then they don't have time to provide, advice. Just go on a customer visit, do something, more on a human basis, I guess.
Something else I thought about, if I may, really quickly, because I know as a person that has called many tech support numbers over the
Yeah.
years, it's always frustrating when you get a different response. But I would
Yes.
imagine that this ensures that there is more consistency now
Yes.
in whatever response or answer is given to a customer's question or query, right?
Yeah. That ensures both consistency, but yet we have, the personal touch, the human touch,
Mm-hmm.
because we don't want to go full automated at this point, let's say. Once again, it's really not our philosophy. And I know some customers, they ask us, oh, can you go, 100%, and you just reply and kind of you want to remove people. And this is not what we're recommending, because we're saying, well, if you automate 95% of your process, that's 95%, gain. Okay, 100% is a bit better, but you have to also recognize the risk. There's always a risk associated with giving a bad answer to your customer and making them even more upset. So you have to, work with all of that.
Have a nice balance, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And that's the same actually. And maybe I can show you that. That's another example with an order. So how we're able to capture data from the order. And I can, I'll show you that as well.
Okay, that would be great.
That's just, another example. So sharing my screen again.
And so, yes, that's something we often talk about with when you're talking about improving a process. You want to make sure that you have consistency in the way that process is delivered. So
Yes.
this is phenomenal what you've shared with us so far. Okay, what do we have here?
And you want to remove errors as much as possible. So this is an
Absolutely.
example. So this time we got an order. So it's all demo data from Paxton Company. It's a free text order. So it's not a PDF. It's really, let's say, a very small customer placing an order and saying, I want those products. And so NLP, natural language processing technologies, were able to identify the date and automatically fill in, as well as the items. So we have the items, the quantities, the unit of measures, and they all come from the email. And we even have another example, more tricky. So the customer just sent an email, but doesn't even provide the items code. But, and I'm going to pause because otherwise it's going too fast. Based on the description on the email, we're able to say, oh, apparently this customer is meaning the light bulbs, 40 watt frosted, whatever, with product code L40F. And so we still put a warning to the users to saying, this is just what we inferred, what we think this is. It might be incorrect. You might want to check, but at least we've been able to propose something. It's a lot easier to just validate and then approve, then retype everything, have to guess, have to do the queries in your internal systems to say what kind of product could it be. So that's another example of what we can do. And the same, we can infer the quantities and unit of measures in this case.
I can't help but wonder, for those of us who have small businesses, this is, we're kind of salivating as we watch your presentation here. But unfortunately, you mentioned that Esker works with much larger enterprises. But to that extent, do you have any resources that you can share with us for those of us, again, that have small businesses and we may be looking at, wow, it would be great if we could have a way of connecting our CRM with our accounting software, with our email system, which more than likely might be Gmail or Outlook. There might be the Microsoft ecosystem. Do you have any recommendations for different resources that we can look into to try to figure out how to make something like that happen?
Yeah, so we've got plenty of resources on our website, obviously.
Okay.
Talking about how typically we released recently an ebook about how AI can help customer service departments, and the title is How AI Help You. So how can I help you? That's a joke, which I didn't get at first, but but I remember the writer, she came to me and said, "Did you get the joke?" I'm like, "No, I don't get it."
I didn't
And she
get
said,
it either.
you worked in tech support, you should. Anyway, so there's this ebook. But then, sometimes there are ways to start small. And this is also one of our philosophies at Esker. We've been doing agility internally and also for our projects with our customers. So, and the whole idea of agility is you start small and then you expand the scope. So at least you get something, you get some benefits. First, you make sure that the product is in the hands of the users, and that you don't imagine something that doesn't even exist or doesn't have a good ROI. So, for instance, you could say, first of all, I'm just going to get the emails. I'm not even going to integrate with the systems, because what I showed you was kind of the dream where it's able to retrieve the shipping information and provide it. But let's say, step one, you retrieve that, you classify your emails. So that's just out of the box. Just by providing descriptions, GPT is going to be able to say, this is an order status request, this is an invoice question, this is. So that's step one. You classify, you do the sentiment analysis. You have, it's easy to implement in a way. And then maybe you want to go further and say, I don't know, I receive a ton of requests for quotations. And maybe I need to go further on those because it's taking a lot of time. So maybe for those, I will have a system that integrates and connects to my price list somehow and is able to generate the answers automatically or semi-automatically. So this is usually what we recommend, is this phased approach where you start with your biggest pain, you get some benefits, people see the value, and then you expand from there.
And so starting with reading the ebook, that would educate us on the possibilities, I imagine, as well as different solutions that we might be able to use until our businesses grow large enough to where we can become customers of Esker. Okay, I understand. Well, as we start to wrap up here, Aurélien, do you have any parting words of advice or encouragement that you would like to share with people who are watching us right now or listening to us as it relates to getting over their fear, any fears that they may have regarding AI?
Yes, there's always a lot of fears. And actually, I wanted to talk about that because this is why I'm wearing this t-shirt today. I don't know if you got the reference, but it's a reference to Blade Runner. So in Blade Runner, the robots are Nexus 6. And anyway, so a lot of, Hollywood movies and AI usually doesn't go well. So Blade Runner doesn't go so well, Terminator, not so well, The Matrix, all of them.
Right.
And it's so it's usually, the robots take over and kill everybody in the end. And well, humans fight, but I think we're not there. So I'm not saying there are not any risks to AI, and I'll come back to that. But so we need to be careful. But to me, the biggest fear so could be AI is uncontrollable. That's not really true. You can put some controls. You need to make sure that, for instance, the data is private. And going back to what I was saying before, that you have some human control. So that's why in our case, we always have a human supervision. And at least until you feel comfortable enough with taking the risk of going fully automated. And the other fear, usually for employees, is a lot around, the robot is going to steal my job. And so that's, the fear, I think, that is common, and it makes sense in a way. And the way we see it, it's going to transform the jobs. It's going to remove the parts that are not so interesting. So necessarily some jobs are going to disappear, or some roles at least, and you're going to have to switch. But to me, this is for the better. And the example that I was taking was more around customer service people. So we have some examples from our customers, where customer service reps were just typing a lot of data manually, and they were afraid a bit when Esker was implemented. But after a few months, they realized, oh, now I have much more time to actually serve my customers, to talk to them on the phone, to go visit them. And it's more a career path, so I can evolve to be more, let's say, an inside sales and maybe some salespeople one day. So that really changes a lot the perspective. And I also wanted to share something else, which was, even though, so it's biased, it's a study that we did with a research company called APQC a few years ago, which was about talking specifically about layoffs and what our customers or customers implementing automation in general did with the time they gained from automation. And only 2% of companies said, we let go some people. Most of the companies said, well, we had people that we could reuse in other departments, in other roles. So it really matches what I said before.
Is that a case study? Is that in the form of a case study that you all have?
So this one is not a case study, it's a survey,
Oh,
APQC
okay.
survey.
Okay.
Because it wasn't necessarily our customers, even though they interviewed some of ours, but not only. And yeah, it was the impact of automation.
Okay. So is that something, if we wanted to look it up,
Yep.
research it online, we could provide? Okay,
Yep.
perfect. We'll do that. We'll make sure that we look that up and have a link to it that we'll provide in the show notes for this particular episode. So what I'm hearing you say is, don't be afraid. And with any technologies, there's always going to be bad actors, people who
Yes.
will do things unscrupulous. But if we focus on the fact that this literally increases our capacity to be able to do more in the same amount of time, I think
Yes.
that is
and focus on what is more interesting.
Yes, indeed, indeed. Well, I appreciate you so much coming on here and giving us those wonderful demonstrations. That was very helpful. And again, for me, for myself as a small business owner, it's opening my eyes even more to the possibilities that are out there. I also really like the fact that you encouraged us to use a phased approach. Just don't look at the entire thing.
Otherwise, it's going to be
From
too
beginning to
complicated.
end, because that can be overwhelming and discouraging, and not to mention very costly. So if we instead focus on, as you pointed out, where is the biggest pain point, figure that part out first, and then just continue the
journey.
The journey. Yes, I love that.
Automation is a journey.
It is indeed a journey. Aurélien, thank you so much. Merci beaucoup for coming onto this show. I
Aucun problème.
appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and we have even more great videos coming up for you. They'll include actual demonstrations of different AI tools that you can start using to improve the way your business operates. So make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss any of this information that's coming up. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video.